outside consumption. Number 4, for Bart Energy, second class. Any questions, comments? Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve liquor licenses as
Need a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the 4 listed liquor licenses. All those in favor would signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Now I would like, that closes the meeting of the Rockingham Board of Liquor Commission. Now I'd like to call to order Rockingham Select Board regular meeting. It is 6:03. Is there any additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and/or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting?
I have none.
I need to approve the minutes from the April 7th, 2020 meeting.
Move to approve.
Any questions, comments? Motion's been made and seconded to approve minutes of April 7th, 2020 meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes to approve the minutes. Are there any public comments on items that are not on the agenda? I have 3 minutes per person.
I have something I would like to discuss.
Yes, sir.
So, hello, my name is Jason Terry, and I've lived in Bellows Falls since 1999. I own a house on Henry Street, and I recently joined the school board, Rockingham School Board in the town. And I'm quite concerned about the taxes that are going to be coming down on all of the residents in the town. I'm not sure if you folks are aware, but there is on April 16th, the Joint Fiscal Office informed the Senate Finance Committee that due to deficit and education fund funding fiscal year 2021 school budgets as they have been approved by voters would require a 26-cent property tax increase. I also posted on that on the Future of Bellows Falls website. And one thing that I have done is I proposed a 10% cut for fiscal year 2021 that the budget was already passed, and I proposed that cut. So that's something we're going to have to discuss at our upcoming meetings. And I'm finding that boards do not go as fast as business does. So things seems like forever. So we have to find my solution, and I'd like to present this and come up with some solutions going forward. We have to find alternative solutions to increase revenue. I am for a rental impact tax, and we will have to cut and or manage the current budget down. Hardworking Vermonters cannot afford this. So my idea is to levy a tax on landlords, which would then trickle down to tenants, because if you look at it, statistically, we're 44% rentals in the town of Bellows Falls or Rockingham or whatever you want to call it. So that's a huge burden for single-family homeowners to pay that tax when rentals are not paying their fair share compared to single-family homeowners. They have more children in the rentals and so on and so forth. So I don't know where to begin. I don't know how to start, but we need to take a look at this, or we have to cut severely, and there's going to be a lot of people that lose jobs, and I don't want that to happen. So maybe we need to do both. I'm not sure. So I don't know where to start, but I want to propose this, and hopefully we can start moving this forward.
Jason, I got a question. Peter Golick on the board.
Yep.
Is that 26-cent increase a result of the penalty that's being imposed for special ed? I think I read something about that a couple of months before the budget. Is that a result of that, or?
I believe that is, if you're talking about the special ed,
I think so, yeah.
so I think what they're talking about with that is Article 1 in Title or Act 173, I believe. And again, I just joined. I'm not an expert. I'm learning as I go here. I don't even know the how to do all these board things. So I'm just a normal everyday guy that just cares. So I think what they're doing is they're maybe pushing that back, but to pay the special ed, special needs, they get most of that money from the meals and tax revenue from the state. And as you know, everything's shut down and a payment is due. So if that payment is not made, then it falls on the taxpayer. That's you, that's me, that's everyone who owns a home, owns property, and that will need to be paid. So it's not hyperbole. This is happening. This is happening. So it's a problem. So we need to come up with solutions. And as a reminder, one thing I've learned here is if you want something done quickly in Vermont, we'll get it done tomorrow. So we got to change that mentality, and we have to, it can't be the same old, same old. This is how we've always done it in Vermont. It has to be, we need to come up with different ways to look at everything. And for me, everything's on the table. My son is he just graduated Keene State, wants to be a music education major. So, yeah, fire away.
We hear you. We're gone over the 3 minutes. We've heard you. As a board, we can discuss what we can do, perhaps get it on a future agenda and see what to do. We all hear you. And,
Thank you.
yes, thank you very much.
I'm willing to do whatever legwork is needed to help out. Again, I'm just a citizen who cares, and I think there's more people like me, and we need to have our voice. So,
thank you very much. We'll keep you posted as to any movement and what we decide that we can do as a select board here to address it. Whether it be form a committee and see what we can do there.
sounds good. Well, thank you for the time, and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Any other?
Gaetano, Guy Payne would like to speak.
Okay, yes.
Hello, all. Just a quick question, and I'm not sure if you're ready to respond, but I'm really interested on the plans that the select board and probably the trustees have in terms of hiring a interim town manager. This date is coming up quickly, and curious to know what the plans are, or at least what the thinking is. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have public comment?
I would.
Who?
Hello?
Deb Wright,
Deb Wright.
Sprunk.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Okay, not a lot. However, I've had a lot of contact with citizens who say they don't use a lot of IT and a lot of website usage. And technically, according to open meeting law, we are supposed to have 3 paper locations where we locate copies of our agendas and our warnings and that sort of thing for them to see. We don't have those because the town hall's closed, the police department's closed, and the library is closed. So I have suggested that perhaps we use the kiosk out front of the town hall to comply. The BFPD, BFFD could post a board outside of their building, and so could RFPL. I think we need to do something to make sure that citizens have the opportunity to see our warnings about meeting agendas and to participate. They need to find it, and I told them it has to be Zoom meetings at this point, but they need to be able to see those meeting warnings, and they can't because our buildings are closed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do you want me to just respond to that real quick?
Yes, please.
Yeah, just a quick response. I agree with you. They need to be able to see those. The notices are supposed to be being posted on the doors of each of those places, on the door of the police station, town hall, and the library. So I'll check and make sure that's happening, but that's how we accommodated that.
This week's is on the front door.
Thank you.
Okay, so Kathleen says it is on the front door of town hall.
Did you hear that? It was posted on the front doors, but they've heard you and we'll make sure they're posted.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm just thinking the kiosk is now empty of events. It's a good place for the town and village to use for postings. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No one else? No one else. Okay, manager's report, please.
Okay, a few things. Can you guys hear me okay? Up there? Okay. Just to let you know with coronavirus, obviously, town hall is still closed. You can call the regular numbers, regular phone numbers. All of the numbers are forwarded to our cell phones. You can email us. You can access the land records online. Hopefully some of you have tried to do that and succeeded. We may open up the clerk's office before the other offices, depending on what the clerk wants to do, because the governor just specifically allowed that. She'd be able to meet with one customer at a time. She might do it via appointment. So if you're interested in getting into the clerk's office, contact Kathleen and she can work with you on that. Utility payments and taxes can be mailed. We're doing credit card payments over the phone. And we've waived as much of the fee as we can. It's normally 3.25%. We're charging 0.1% because we need to charge something to make the system work. But we are getting a lot of folks making those payments. So hopefully that will be something people might want to do in the future. Thanks for your patience. People are being really good about making payments and during this time, because it is more difficult than it usually is. The recycling center is still operating. It's one at a time. Don't empty your attic. This is not the time to bring a lot of goods that go into the big building in the middle. This is the time just to bring recycling and household waste. Gary Fox is still available to help businesses with applying for the support that's out there. And I just want to let people know a local bank has distributed $2 million in PPP funds to businesses in our area. So that's Walpole, Westminster, Rockingham, and Allsted. So the aid is getting here, which is good. Greater Falls Connections is still doing their work, and I just want to say thank you to the employees who have had to deal with lots of changes, safety hazards, unexpected work schedule changes. I just want you to know you're appreciated. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the manager? Peter, Susan? Can you guys hear okay? Peter and Susan?
I can hear okay, but Wendy, can you go to one side or the other? Because you're like right behind Gaetano in the camera. That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to the agenda. Item number 1, Development Office, Gary Fox.
Yeah, so at the last previous meeting of the select board, the select board requested that to table this item and bring it back at a later meeting with input from the theater committee. And so I sought out that input, and it's actually a broader, a larger situation than just looking at alternatives for a theater in the lower theater. There's the wiring needs to be upgraded, the lift, the kitchen, sprinkler. There's a lot of items that need to be up to code. And in the development work for a building, being able to identify architecturally items that aren't up to code, what would need to be done and what the costs are the first step in a multi-year process of developing a plan for making upgrades. There's all sorts of different grant funds available, from accessibility modification grants, historic preservation grants. The town hall is eligible for tax credit improvements, which can be sold to banks on 80 or 90 cents on the dollar for things that need to come up to code. So what this grant would do is take the first baby steps in identifying the issues in an alternative analysis. What can be done with the space? And what are the aspects that need to be upgraded to code versus that need to be upgraded functionality? and start to put some cost to those in a rough sense, so that as we move along through the year, we can present long-term plans and what a step-by-step piece would be, a triage for bringing that portion of the building up to par in the same way that we've done with the rest of town hall. So this grant application to BDCC would be for architectural feasibility study and alternatives analysis, which would start giving us the first pieces of information on the lower theater that are, at least the first ones that I'm aware of, that are architecturally correct and to engineering standards as well. That's what I discovered talking to the theater group. Every time they started talking about what to do with the theater, they ran into all of these issues as a very front piece. And I think for us, for the town hall, it's that larger issue of bringing it up to standard.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
I guess my concern after Sue's comments last meeting about the theater committee not being sure what they really want to do down there, I just want to remind people that the current bond for the theater and town hall renovation doesn't expire till 2025. That's 5 years from now. And I think this whole grant process, even though it's just preliminary and it's just looking to find out what costs and things might be, between now and 5 years, a bond movement could be come up with, and we may be faced with trying to get some money, which easily could be reaching into $250,000 if you had the lift on and electrical work and everything else that's got to be done downstairs. I'd be a little hesitant to go after this grant at this point. I don't know how anybody else feels on the board.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions also.
Yes, sir.
So are we saying that the upgrades or the improvements that you're talking, such as wiring, et cetera, is that contingent upon being able to do something down there with an organization, whether it be Main Street Arts or our own theater or who?
So what I'm saying is that we don't know exactly what the situation is there, and beyond what we want to do for final use, bonding for repairs, like for what we did with the theater, it is a quick way to get through that. But looking at it, with 2025, the current bond coming due and having funds available, it can easily take 5 years to work through smaller grants and develop plans and uses to the point where you can apply for the larger modification grants and community development block programs. And this $5,000 would be a baby step in identifying what the situation is for developing a 5-year plan for improving the downstairs, and then even knowing what's possible there, to have a reasonable discussion about end use and what we want to do there.
Okay. Then my follow-up would be, did we have a discussion at one point in July, either in March or the year before, reference possibilities? We talked about the train station, we talked about the lower theater, and I thought, as far as being able to rent it or something, we had to do some of these things for commercial or even with our own theater.
Yeah, certainly. In order to have the lower theater be income producing as well as continue to host meetings, it would need those upgrades. But I mean, a cost benefit analysis and what kind of income could be generated there would be part of any long-term plan for that. But until we know what the situation is, and this is a good opportunity to start getting a picture without spending taxpayer
Why
money.
don't we talk about soundproofing and so we'll hear what's going on upstairs?
Yeah, all of those. Yeah, there's a.
Okay, that's, you touched upon it briefly, but my follow-up question, my second question is, say, for example, that was to be having something done in the future with, what about the meetings at the select board, the trustees, and whoever else conducts meetings there? How is that going to affect it? As far as availability and everything?
Yeah, so that's just a planning and a programming question. Is as you fix up the space to be income producing, what you want to do with it and where you want to have your meetings. It's a fine place for public meetings and for select board.
We're also probably wired, I guess, for live meetings, et cetera.
Yeah, let me just add, we've been under the assumption that the select board and trustees will continue to meet there on Tuesdays, which is a great news. And the select board and trustees come first,
Right.
especially the select board since they own the building. But this would be also a way to evaluate the lighting improvements that you've been wanting for years.
Well,
That
I
would
mean,
be part of this study.
You know,
You're not gonna get the lighting improvements,
Yeah.
but we'll have more of an idea of what it would cost.
I haven't seen the lighting improvements in several years. I've mentioned that, so I'm not too impressed there. But my other question would be, have we talked with the theater manager or anybody to see what, because evidently it's going to involve him, I would assume, correct? What the thoughts are there? Or?
Yeah, so those pieces come a little bit later. This is an assessment of conditions and what's possible. My understanding of the discovery from talking to committee members is that they can't really get to a point of any planning without knowing what the conditions are, what needs to be done, and what's possible.
He's aware of this grant application. That's the question.
Yes, certainly, yes. Yeah, we have discussions all the time about what he would like to do with the space, what others would like to do, the potential for being flexible and adaptive with the space. He's very active in both the theater committee and the conversations that I have.
Okay.
Susan, anything?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that I think we should go for this because we do need to know what the status of that space is and what needs to be done. And this is a grant that we have no match to. It'll enable us to get a good analysis and for planning for the future. So I don't see a harm in not applying for the grant.
Anything?
I'll just agree with what Peter said. I think it's a little too early to be going after something like this. And just, I know it's not costing us anything, but in the times that we're in, just not in favor of it right now.
One final comment I'd like to make is that I would be concerned that we don't have a case of the tail wagging the dog versus a dog wagging the tail here. Following up on some of Stefan's comments, that's where that's coming from.
And I don't agree that it's not costing a dime. It's taxpayer money, no matter where it comes from. So I'll say the same thing I said last time is that money might be able to be needed. You look at the amount of money the federal government has been spending that they didn't plan for right now. I'm just not in favor at this time.
Again, that money is it's earmarked for certain things and it wouldn't go for this. But Gary, is there another potential project? Because this is money that's been set aside for various people in Windham County. Is there some other project that's, obviously this one doesn't have support. Is there some other project you would consider applying for?
Yeah, so these funds are obligated already and they're in BDC's hands for these types of projects, so they can't be taken back and put to other federal projects. But BFADC is requesting some funds for pre-architectural work on the 21 Island Street property to provide better applications for the funding to build a facility. So we are, in a sense, with BFADC going in for other projects there. I don't know if there's any specific town one.
Town project.
Yeah. Certainly, there's always more work that can be done at the train station. We do have application in with the USDA to match town meeting funds to begin that architectural work for redeveloping that building.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment here?
Available
Not really
for,
relative
or,
to this.
I mean, are they going to be distributing it all out to other people?
I don't think it's going that quickly.
Okay.
I don't think we're in danger of missing out on something if we don't have this now. Misunderstood. I don't think it's a problem to not apply for this. We won't be losing out.
Peter?
Yeah, it's not really relative to this discussion, but in lieu of the 2 meetings that we've had in regards to the Restart Vermont project, could probably Gary or Wendy give a quick, short overview for the public as to what's going on there or what may potentially be going on there with funds?
That doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking
I know it. I'm just bringing it up before either one of them runs out of the meeting. I think it would be a good move to let the public know what's going on there.
about. Really. Wasn't really public information. But they can answer it if they want.
Sure, it is public. It's an idea that is in process of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development of the state. And what they would like to do is have a program that's called Restart Vermont. And they're asking towns who have revolving loan funds to participate in it. It's voluntary participation.
I think he's referencing your comment in your manager's report about the $2 million that's been distributed.
Oh.
Right, Peter?
No, that's incorrect. Yeah, okay, Catano, she's on the right track.
Okay.
So the program isn't finalized yet. They've asked for comments from municipalities. A subset of the RLF committee has made some comments. The entire RLF committee is being asked for their input. There's going to be a webinar tomorrow on it. The final program would probably be finished, I would say, in a week or two. What the state wants to do, the purpose of it is to centralize requests for funding from small businesses. The loans would be maximum $20,000, grants of $5,000, so relatively small. The business would have to have 10 employees or less, annual revenues of $1 million or less. That's what they're talking now. They might increase that a little bit. But the intent is to have a centralized location in the state for businesses to go to for funding, and that would be businesses who are not funded under the federal PPP program.
So is this a derivative of the COVID situation that we're in?
Oh, yeah, it's in response to COVID. I'm sorry, I should have said that. Yes.
It also involves our RLF funding, so that you know that some of that money may be taken. As Wendy said, nothing has been submitted in concrete yet. That'll happen maybe after tomorrow when the state returns a proposal, but part of the money that is currently in our RLF fund will be turned over somewhat to the state. People make applications and which come back to us for final approval, but I just want people to know that they are playing with our funds there. To what extent, we don't know yet.
And would that come back before the select board?
It's a voluntary program, so yes, I would think it would come before the select board.
Totally different discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the grant here. What do you want to do? Motion, no motion?
Well, I would move to apply for the grant, but I don't think that the other board members agree, so.
Okay, no motion, so we will move on. Item number 2, financial matters, finance office, current financial statement.
Yes, and you received these today. Sorry for the delay. Shannon is on phone, or not on phone, rather, she's on screen.
I'm here.
She can answer questions that you have, or possibly give an overview, Shannon.
So at a high level, we're on target to meet or exceed revenues. We are not sure yet what it looks like given the pandemic, although I think that will probably be hitting our next tax bill and utility cycle. But right now we're in a good position as far as revenue is concerned. and we're taking precautions with expenses and personnel, getting ahead of the curve. But as far as budget, I anticipate that we will come in under for expenses, and we look good all around, both highway and general.
Question, Shannon, in going through the pages, I noticed the road funds from the state are only about 50% in. Are we expecting more from them, or with this situation going on with the COVID, are they cutting back on the funding?
Nope, we'll receive 100%.
Oh, okay, just curious. I noticed that in the project it only showed 50% for the 3 road categories there.
No, good question. Nope, we're still on target to get all 100%.
Okay, thank you.
Kind of goes along with this, but it might be more towards item B, and I'll ask it now. In reference to the statement about the theater, it looks to me like it's showing, not knowing, that there's possibly $103,000 deficit there. Is that correct?
So I think that we will have approximately $100,000 deficit in revenue. I think Wendy's going to speak in a little bit to some efforts they're going to try and make from a concession standpoint. But we will also see a reduction in expense for almost the same amount. We now have furloughed our theater cinema employees, and we aren't purchasing concessions. Utilities are minimal because there's no one there. So, and we're not renting movies. So in the same respect, we're missing out on revenue. I anticipate our expenses under as well.
Okay, it doesn't show in the report here. That's why I asked the question. You can show that it will, by doing the things you mentioned, it shows the savings from that, and then it shows the loss of revenue projected. So if you simply subtract the two, it shows a significant loss that I don't think selling concessions will balance.
Are you talking about Wendy's COVID statement?
I am.
As opposed to the actual financial statement.
I said it was kind of
Yeah.
the same, so.
Yeah, I mean, I can go to that if you want. I mean, basically, I was just talking about personnel costs in that. That was the 130.
But would it be helpful if we had the numbers for the reduction in films and utilities, so we could get an accurate number? Because looking at your projected numbers with this information, that's the first thing that caught my attention is a significant impact.
Yeah, I think what we should give you is anticipated for the year in both revenues and expenses, which we did when we were doing the budget, but we should do updated ones now that we have some experience of COVID.
Okay.
Shannon, if I'm not mistaken, we're pretty close with the expenses and income in that theater right now, including cinema and theater. If my math's correct, is our revenue is 219,000 and our expenses are 221,300. So we're about $2,300 different. So if we can find ways to, freeze the expenditures, I think we aren't going to be that much of a $130,000 deficit as written in the statement. But Wendy has a point. We need to project out, what we anticipate spending for those items that she mentioned.
Right. That's my anticipation, is that, the theater will pretty much is probably done for the fiscal year. Maybe it will open up before June 30th, but I anticipate it'll be the last thing to open. So my feeling is that we pretty much broke even, and although we'll have a shortfall in revenue, we'll see the same shortfall in expenses.
Yeah. Also, the recycling is a little concerning. looks like we got 117,000 in expenses and only 104 in income. But yet it's only 2 months away.
So we never anticipated to break even for recycling.
No, yeah, I realize that. I'm just bringing those numbers out. That's all. And hopefully for the next meeting, I'll have a press release ready and a proposed price increase. I think Wendy's seen it and Gary's seen it. So it'll be to the boards for the next meeting or ahead of the time so you can look at it.
And then we do still have a grant revenue coming through with the elevator modernization. It's taking forever, but that revenue is going to come through and it's shown at 0 now. Do you know the number it's on your right here?
I think it's $50,000.
Okay, I was thinking 45, so yeah, so it's 50,000 that we don't have yet, that's not shown.
Any other questions on the first part? We want to just roll into the COVID financial impact, or everyone read that? The changes are in red from the last one. Or is there any more questions for Shannon on current finance report?
No, all set.
And moving on to the COVID-19 financial impact. It's been updated. The recent updates are in red, so everyone has a copy or has read that. Changes from last April 14th, a week ago. March 1st, April 14th, April 21st changes.
Did you want me to go over this?
Do we want to go over this in detail, or does anyone have any questions? It seems pretty straightforward to me. Or does anyone want to hear the whole thing again?
I can hit the highlight.
I think that would be good for the public who don't necessarily have a copy of the.
Right.
Right, what I can do is post this somewhere on the website, because it has been prepared the day of the meetings, both last week and this week, just things are changing so quickly. And this document is for both the town and the village, which is unusual, but they are they're being impacted in very similar ways. Just a couple of things that I think are important. The village utility fund, we had projected a net increase to fund balance in the town budget and the village budget, and that projection continues to be the case, but obviously it needs to be updated regularly now. The two village utility funds or I'll skip the village stuff. Select for me. Cash flow is carefully being monitored. We normally have a cash balance between $3 and $7 million. We're conserving cash. Some town debt may qualify for a program that is for utilities that the state has implemented, which allows a delay in payments on debt of a year until May of 2021, which is significant. Some town debt might qualify for that. Property taxes, that's the big issue, and particularly to what Jason was saying earlier. Primary source of revenue for both the village and the town's general funds. And I did check on this. Great River Hydro pays 18.85% of town taxes, so it's unlikely we'd have a deficit because between Great River Hydro and their two utilities, that's about 22% of our total. The final quarterly payment of this year's tax bills, property tax bills, it's due May 11th. Payments are coming in at a normal rate, which is a good thing. We'll begin to receive the escrow payments next week, which make up about 50% of the total. So we can do another update next week. But people are paying their taxes in the patterns that they normally do, which is a good thing. And people are being very patient about the different ways that they have to pay their taxes. So we're not getting a lot of complaints, which is terrific. The legislature is considering a bill that would give select boards the authority to create new deadlines for property tax payments next year. It would also give them the ability to decrease, waive, or establish grace periods for penalties and interest on late property taxes. And that legislation is working its way through the process now. It could be adopted as early as next week. Again, things are changing constantly. And I just stress again, it's not just difficult to predict the future, it's actually not possible because of this is a situation we've never been in before. All levels of government are reacting in different ways, and the private sector is reacting in very strong ways. So not to say that we shouldn't prepare for the unknown by cutting back on unneeded expenses. So that's the next section is about expenses. Opera House Theater closed in early March with the cancellation of a large spring live show. The theater is closed. If it's closed the last 4 months of the fiscal year, which is what we expect, the loss of revenue, so that's, we're not saying that's the net, but the loss of revenue is projected to be $135,000. We furloughed the Opera House manager, reduced schedule 6 hours a week, and the part-time staff is no longer being paid. That's saving $8,000 a month. Obviously not enough to offset the 135. Then I'll skip to the other furloughs that we've recently done. This week we furloughed the assistant clerk and 7 highway positions. That saves $53,000 per month. The reason we furloughed the highway positions because they can, in the Bill Berkshire can speak to this more. We believe that we were operating in a way that was safe, but the Agency of Commerce and Community Development came down with interpretations of the governor's rules that said we couldn't do things like grading, which is obviously something that you can do with a vehicle. They said we couldn't do sweeping. That interpretation may change tomorrow, and then we'll reevaluate those furloughs. There's lots of work that needs to be done, ditching, and there's also the public works sector is particularly concerned about work that needs to be done to prepare for summer roadway work on Bridgewood Drive. We also discontinued use of recreation part-time staff this week. So looking at from March 1st to April 21st.
What does that mean?
Sorry?
What does that mean? Reduce?
That we're not, some of the part-time people were in pay status even though they weren't working even close to the hours that they had previously. So
what's your rec director doing?
He's taking over all of the activities. There's a lot of indoor stuff he's planning for the programs in the summer, and he's not full-time. He's part-time. So his work regularly ebbs and flows during the season. Or during the year, I should say. So the staffing, March 1 was 41 full-time staff, 26 part-time. This is both village and town. That does not include part-time police. Full-time does include police. So as of April 21, we're down to 29 full-time and no part-time, but again, not including police. So we've reduced staff significantly. So that's what we've done most recently.
Is a maintenance position, is that in here? Or
Oh, that's been furloughed.
so that's not updated in this.
Actually it is. That's one of the 9 furloughs.
7 highway.
But the person is working 1 hour a day. 1 hour a day to keep an eye on the systems in the building. Because you can furlough, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can furlough people for a particular amount of time.
Any questions, comments? Item C, financial matters, consideration. Public Works position after town meeting.
Yeah, do you want me to give you an overview of this?
I don't need one. This report seems the same as we saw before.
It is.
I don't. Go ahead for the public and the folks at home if you want.
Sure, yeah, this is, to discuss the reinstatement of the public works director position in light of the actions that were taken at town meeting. Town meeting voted to reinstate the funding and then requested in a separate vote that the select board reinstate the position. What I did, I just provided the information that we gave you during the budget, conversations earlier this year, showing the savings stats position that the position saves much more than it costs. The position doesn't require that the individual be an engineer, but because the individual is an engineer, that alone saved us probably $200,000 in the Bird Lake project, which we may very well not have done the additional roadway work if we hadn't had Everett on board. And this shouldn't be about Everett, this should just be about the position itself. But we have information for you just showing that the public works director position is necessary, and if there's not a public works director at all, then a lot of that work would fall on the planning director, the manager, finance director, and likely the development director. And those are all in the same hourly rate, so there's really no savings, and that staff would have less time to do other work.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Do we know the status of Mike Hines at this time? Is he back to work? Still out?
He is out on workers' compensation.
And we have no idea how long he's going to be gone, correct?
That's accurate.
Okay. The item number 3 sort of speaks to the reason why we should reinstate this position. You got 4 items there. Number A is not that real important. That's an access permit, but paving bids, chip seal bids, and the 10-wheel plow truck, all those require a little bit of work and input. And some of the people that Wendy has mentioned that could help with that, I don't think are qualified. They don't have the background for it. I know a couple of them had mentioned to me that they don't have any idea what's going on with that. So hearing that Mike is not available, although we do have people that are covering his position currently, and hate to say it, but thanks to COVID-19, we're able to reduce the workforce, but I still think this position needs to be reinstated. So I would be in favor of voting to reinstate this position, as that is the intent of the town voters who did increase that budget specifically for that purpose. Now, granted, that's true, but the board has the discretion as to what to do with that money. And I think if we don't put it where the desire is, I think we're making a big mistake here.
I have to agree with Peter on that, and again, if we're talking about the position, not the individual, there's a lot of things that need to be done. And also looking into, we're not just thinking this summer, we have whoever is in this position would be looking at 2021's construction year as well. And I think without somebody in that position, that's going to fall through the cracks.
What's not listed here also is the Hyde Hill project and the drainage work on Grizzle Drive that's direly needed. I noticed in the paving bids there that in the chip seal bids, some of that got changed around to do a little more paving and less chip sealing. So someone had to have the intelligence to make that decision. So I just reinforced my positive vote for this position.
Okay, thank you. Good comment here.
I'm gonna stick to what I said before. I don't think it's necessary. There's a lot of things on this list here that don't need to be engineered. I don't a paving RFP does not need to be engineered. I think with proper management of a road foreman, then this is stuff can easily get done. I'm not saying we don't need engineering for anything, but I don't see it as a necessary position.
Everything?
Where do we stand with the, we talked about chip sealing that we were gonna take a look at and possibly redoing that. Where do we stand with that?
I don't know, I was gonna bring that up when we got to 3C. I'm not interested in contracting with the same company when we haven't fixed the last project. I don't have the answer to that. Yep.
I mean, do you want him to answer that?
Which 3C or? I think we should wait until 3C. Nothing else. I don't have any comment.
What are the possibilities of taking a look at that? I mentioned it back during budget time, that maintenance position. I think the numbers came in roughly around 79,000. That's something that I'm not so sure of and I support, so.
Wow.
Question of, sorry.
I feel as though, with the amount of staff we have here, if you know, another position that's over 6 figures to put together RFPs, I mean, I can't buy into that logic. And
Well, I think you're underestimating what that position entails, but we do have to make a decision in any event. I mean, what to do with this budget that was extra money that was given to us. So if it's not going to be in a new public works, reinstating the public works position, it should, in my opinion, should go to engineering, because we will have some engineering needs.
okay, I was speaking to the position. Everyone else had a chance to speak to it. I was speaking that what I already said, and it shouldn't cost that much to get those things done. It's not, you know, we keep saying, oh, we don't need an engineer yet. We have an engineer in that position, so that it seems like the majority of that work you could get done with a highway foreman. We've already just.
We don't have a foreman and we don't know when we're gonna get him back.
Well, then we should get one. I don't hire and fire. It's not my position. We make a budget. I don't know what the answer to that question is. If we had that position filled, do you think we'd be okay, Peter?
Depending on the person we hired, and if he has the qualifications, the background for it, and knows the town like Mike Hines does and Everett does, yeah, probably we'd be all right.
Great.
But otherwise, as Sue just said, if we don't have someone there, this money should be given to the engineering. We should set this money aside for engineering costs down the road somewhere, because it may come to a point where we're gonna need one.
I don't see.
And how are you gonna pay for it? There's no money in the budget for one. You don't have one there, any money in there now. We cut it out.
I agree. Put the money into engineering for the next year, and a year from now, we'll see where we're at. Because I'm telling you, it's not gonna be all spent.
And we hadn't planned on engineering anywhere near that. amount. Not even close. Nowhere near it.
Well, we also don't know what's coming. I mean, we could have another major storm. We could have a major culvert go out. I mean, we need to have, we haven't had money in engineering because we had a public works director who happened to be an engineer. Now we have neither, or next fiscal year we'll have neither of those things. So I think we need to put money into engineering, though. I mean, because right now there is nothing in that budget line. And I disagree that there's no engineering for 2021. There will be 2021 engineering needs. It's right here on this paper.
What is it?
Well, here, look.
119.5 word?
That's this yellow part right on the second.
Yeah,
Engineering calendar year 2021, design Leach Road box culvert, Oak Street culvert replacement, Hartley Hill road design, continued sidewalk work. I mean, a lot of these things need engineering.
The other thing we're looking at here is that if we don't have a person in that position and we just allot money to an engineering, you're not going to get someone dedicated. So if they start work and they get called to another job because they're working for another company, they're going to be working for that company, not for the town of Rockingham. So there's a problem. You could be waiting 2 weeks for the project shut down for somebody to come back and give you the answers you're looking for. That's my only concern.
well, could the manager or some, wherever, highlight, I mean, I can read it here, but I mean, you got some figures here that, you know, 100,000, 103,000, 124,000. Aren't some of these projects, when they're put out the bid, the engineering is spec'd out in the bid specs?
Well, look at the bottom section.
Yep.
So where it says the blue one, 144,000, that's next year's engineering that is not in public works structure. So then you can look up here and see where the blue is.
Yep.
Permitting is something that would be challenging for a foreman to do, I would think, especially the Act 250 permit. So you would certainly want some sort of professional for that.
Yeah, engineer for simple culvert replacement oversight.
It depends on how complicated the culvert is.
Number 10, request for proposals. We need an engineer for RFPs now. Is that something new?
I think the point here, I mean,
Apparently, yeah.
we just happen to have a public works director at this time, or at least until the end of June, who happens to be an engineer. We're talking about a public works director position, which clearly you three decide that that's not necessary. I disagree with that, but we do have engineering needs coming up for future projects. So if this funding is not to be used for public works director, I think we need to set it aside for engineering, because there will be engineering needs.
We're just discussing engineering costs, so that's what we were talking about.
Well, let me ask, if I may.
We're trying to go through them because we're not seeing the 124,144 that they have totaled up here. My first question was, why would you need to spend $4,000 for an engineer for, it says right here, simple oversight, Oak Street culvert. That's one example. In 2021.
Right.
I don't know what the sidewalk work is in Bellisville. It's $16,000 in sidewalk work. We didn't fund that. Did we fund that additional sidewalk work that much? I don't think we did.
Okay, so
Well,
this
stairs design, we would pay someone to design those stairs. Why would we pay our DPW $20,000 for that?
So this is showing how much it would cost for an outside person, right? Yeah,
We're
the
not
bottom
planning on
section.
doing those things, but you've totaled it up to give us this number of what you're using as a comparison of why we need these funds.
Right,
we
Correct.
replacing
Or why
the
we need this
stairs?
position.
Are we doing the stairs?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, a lot of these things that do happen, stairs, for example, you've got to do the design ahead of time before it's even put into the budget to be put out for a bid for the year after. So there's a lot of things, you know, that have to happen, like design, Winter Road, block forward. You know, there's grant money coming up soon. Without the design, you're not gonna put that out. These are estimated prices of what it would cost if you put everything out. For example, the plan guy comes back and says, I want this much sidewalk. Someone's gonna look at it, and normally the way I estimate these is 20% of the total construction cost. I didn't dive into the nitty gritty to each one of these to say, why is it gonna cost this for that, this for this? This is approximate. Do you have to do all these? Maybe not. Front Street retaining wall does need to happen. That's something that I'm gonna put forward a couple of weeks at least for the actually engineering grant for that for next year. That's gonna be right for probably $24,000 range. It's a tricky project. It's a wall that's collapsing on, you know, into a house. It's been happening for years. So yeah, you can go down through each one of these. This is approximately what it's gonna cost, unless you don't do something, which is possible.
I agree with that. I didn't remember budgeting for all this work.
No, some of this one,
I'm not nitpicking.
okay,
I'm being action.
right. Some of this is stuff, like I said, is stuff to be budgeted and planned for future projects. So it's not always gonna happen. This stuff is not necessarily gonna happen this year. You have to think ahead what is gonna happen and be ready for the money when the money does come out. Whether it's a grant, whether it's federal government money that might come floating this way.
Can we come back to my question of, some of these projects, I understand when they go out the bid, engineering's already in the bid.
Not for these.
Not for these.
No, that's usually for town funded highway, for self-funded highway projects. Even your, well, you could, I mean, maybe the structure, that might be the only one, that's one we put together in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Have that ready to go with the board. That will pay for structure, you know, for structural engineering on that one.
Yeah.
Well, 80-20, it's an 80-20 match.
Okay.
But most of them, if you're doing your own projects, does not include it. If you're talking about water projects, sewer projects, that's a different story.
Right.
So they, for example, Berkeley property, the plan profile, cross sections, and all that kind of stuff on that project. You know, for sidewalks, everything had to have a certain elevation.
So the
That was
highlight,
not funded by the water project.
so you did that then?
Yeah.
And is that a requirement?
Well, that or the contractor's gonna wing it. There's so many grades, critical grades to it. You know,
Okay.
I wouldn't recommend it.
What do other towns and communities do, or villages, that don't have an engineer but have these similar projects? The state of Vermont doesn't step up to the plate and do some of this stuff?
They would if it's like Hartford or by interchange, they're getting ready to put out. It's already out to bid. You're talking multi-million-dollar project, right off by McDonald's. So the state of Vermont, I believe, is funding that 100%. Most small road projects, if you want to rebuild Grizzle Drive, they're not, the state's not going to rebuild Grizzle Drive.
Well, then what all these,
Right, but what would the town do is this
So
question?
that would be, town would have, for example, down the road, town would have to fund Grizzle Drive.
what do all these other places do, because don't have an engineer on
So a
staff?
lot of them don't go through and redo it. There's still a lot of what's happening, a lot of reclaim. So you reclaim it, there's really inferior material in there, and you're gonna reclaim it, regrade it, repave it, the road's gonna continue to break up. That's what's happening a lot, over and over. I've seen it. There's not many towns that are going through and digging it up, putting in proper gravel, for example, Berkeley Park, without the profile, the cross sections and all that, the contractor would not have an idea of what depth they get to go down to.
Well,
2 feet of gravel.
let me be upfront, Susan, Peter, I'm interested in discussing it and hearing more about this, all right? But things I don't like is when I sat here, the other meeting room, we talked about a salt shed, and there was one available. Wendy, I made you well aware of it. I think it sold for $18,500, and we're in here trying to, at the time, just a discussion about applying for a $700,000 grant, using almost $300,000 of our reserve fund to obtain something like that. You know, I don't think we would have been over 30,000 if we had gotten a bid on that place for 18, whatever it went for. And then had to put some riggers, hire some riggers to take it down bring it over here and reassemble it, maybe put them up in a hotel over there for a week. I mean, we need to start thinking differently around here. And I'll tell you what I'm thinking right now. I want to hear more about this, but I'm wondering, why do we have a maintenance position for paying, roughly, it's costing us $79,000. I'd much rather spend that kind of money over on something like the public works director / engineer to determine that. And as far as the maintenance, if there's a problem, well, I look at this, if there's a problem leaking or there's something leaking, call a plumber, if there's something electrical, call an electrician. Okay, somebody notices it, Kathleen may notice it, you may notice it when you're in the building, I may notice it, or whoever, but I mean, I think we need to start spending a little bit more differently around here.
Well, it's just, I mean, the way I respond to that is that's something that you can talk to the next manager about looking at staffing the public works department and seeing if it can be done differently. One suggestion that I would have while you're at that,
Yeah.
think about including the recycling operation in public works. I haven't brought that up before, but it's just something I think would make sense. Just something to have in your head. So I don't know what you think about that, Peter. I'm just bringing that up.
I just have two comments to make, and that is, number one, you got the Arch Street Bridge project coming up, so I'm just gonna have to coordinate with the state of New Hampshire and Vermont on that one to make sure that we don't get the short end of the stick. And you also got the Depot Street Bridge that's gonna come up, and we want to know the same situation there. We want to make sure that we're not getting the short end of the stick with that turn radius and everything else there. And I think you need an engineer to argue with an engineer at the state to get that accomplished. We're not going to have that much sway. But the other thing I have to say is that 2 years ago when we did Down Street and the sidewalks and the paving, everybody complained about when we didn't have a DPW person. We had a manager who had no experience writing the RFPs for that paving or the sidewalks. We had an outside engineer, and we also had help from the planning person that admitted to me that he had no idea what he was doing, and he refused or begged off of doing the RFP for the paving and the sidewalk. So that's all I'm going to make that comment. So it looks like there's 3 people that aren't going to vote for this position, but so be it. That's the way the vote goes.
What are you referencing, the sidewalks and paving when we funded that position? If a manager, if the next town manager can't negotiate the Arch Bridge project, I'm not sure why in the world that would require a whole nother paid position. The manager can simply handle all of that. In fact, it should be part of their duty.
You just made a contradictory statement. You just said that the next manager who you're going to have to pay, and you don't want to support the other position. So, either we're not going to hire a manager or we're not going to put this position back in. So can't be both ways.
Pay the manager to go meet with the Arch Bridge staff. Not going to be any engineering. Bring a highway foreman. I'm not sure why we would need a third position to do that.
I'm just making those comments. Think about what they're worth or not worth.
My opinion towards those comments, I don't think we need an additional staff member to go meet with the Arch Bridge discussion or the Depot Street Bridge discussion. And I don't know which asphalt and sidewalk you're referring to, Rockingham Street.
It runs down street when they did the whole thing, and you're still complaining about the chip seal that's been ripped up. You complained month after month about the sidewalks and the paving and the catch basins.
Correct. What's your point?
All right. So we didn't have a DPW person. We had an outside engineer doing that.
We had a DPW oversight.
No, we didn't. That project was designed and engineered before Everett came on board.
Oversight of
I'm not sticking up for Everett. Believe me, Everett's got his own issues to deal with. But I'm just saying that it looks like it's a personality here situation versus a position situation.
That's not true at all. Go ahead. I wish you wouldn't make that statement because that's not true at all. That may be how you feel, but this is a cost. $119,500 for a public works position that 90% of towns in the state of Vermont don't have.
And the voters voted the budget up to cover that.
Well, not that.
So you're going against the voters, but that's, you know, you live by the sword and you're gonna die by the sword. So we'll find out next election.
Yeah, and that's fine, because 90% of people that voted for me that day told me to stick with my decision.
You're entitled to your opinion. I'm just making my comments.
I do agree, we need to put some money into the engineering. Because there's gonna be some that needs to be done, but we don't need the public works position, in my opinion. And that's it.
So if that's gonna be the way this is gonna go, what do we plan to do with the money that's been voted in the budget? Where's that going? We need to make that decision tonight. Stefan says he needs more information.
Well, what I'd like to see is, I mean, I've heard from people outside of here also, all right? And I'm weighing what we're spending on, and I'll just come right out and say it, I'd rather spend $79,000 in the public works director rather than in the maintenance position. You guys can pick it up from wherever you'd like from there. What's more valuable is, I'm not saying anything different that I didn't say then, and then at the 11th hour, somebody elected to say, well, if I'd had more time, I could have looked into that. Well, you know what? We're here and it's now, and I'm giving you more time.
Legally, because this is, that funding was put into the highway department, it can be used for anything within the highway department. Is that how it works? I mean, the voter's intention was public works position.
We have, Sue, we have the board has the final discretion to do with that funds. And as I said, you live or die by the sword. So if you vote against the project that the voters want in there, then you could be voted out the next election. Who knows? It's anybody's guess at this point. But I just make the comment. So I guess we need to know, are we going, are we voting on to reinstate the position, or are we gonna put the vote off if there is one to be made and take up this disposition of the funds at another meeting? Or are we doing that tonight?
Excuse me, just so you know, there is public comment on this once you're done, Gaetano.
Well, Ben never got his comment. Peter interrupted him and wouldn't stop talking. So we're ready for a public, if you have a question from the public.
Not much.
Okay, Deb, that's you?
Yes, it's me. And I don't have much. It's just, my question is, what happens when the taxpayers don't give you that money? When they don't pay their bills? How are you planning on accounting for $119,000 you may not have? You're having a long discussion on speculative income, speculative revenue. That's it. Just want to know what you think is going to happen when you don't have that money. Thank you.
This discussion again, I feel like we had the discussion, we made a budget, they wanted to increase the funding by 119.5. I think you put it somewhere and don't touch it. I've said it 3 weeks in a row here, concerned about the future impact here. I'm not, we're hearing that the tax payments are coming in and we project them to come in, but what about the August payments? Nobody knows about those. Nobody knows about the next quarter after that. So spending more money right now is not anything I'm in favor of. With more staff, and in reference to Stefan's comment, I do believe you could get a person to do both those positions with one line item of funding. Absolutely.
So anybody want to talk about doing something along that $79,000 we have allotted for maintenance? And
we can't do that now. Nothing we can do now. That would be that's above our pay grade. We're discussing this money and what I'm in favor of not touching it. We don't know what's going to happen.
Mr. Chairman, to move this conversation along or end it, I would make the motion that the position for DPW be reinstated if I can get a second.
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded to reinstate DPW position. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Gaetano, nay.
Ben, no.
No.
3 no's.
And I just want to make clarification. I mean, everyone knows that Everett is my brother. I was voting for the position of DPW, not for the person sitting in that position at the moment. Regardless, even if it's not an engineer, we need a DPW person. I just want to make that clarification.
Thank you. Moving on, we have item A in the Public Works Highway Access Permit for 31A Forestry.
Okay, this lot,
This,
okay, there's no access for this lot. 31A Forestry, they're looking at putting in a narrow driveway, just enough so when they drive in, they'll be able to step out on the walkway. They want to save the walkway, it's going to be very tight. The catch basin you see on the picture, just down the hill from that. I met them out there on the site, it looks doable. They're anticipating how Hodgkins, even right now, they still want to go forward with this, but Hodgkins themselves will do the work. I put my conditions in there, I don't see any issues. They do want to save, keep their water and sewer pipes in there. I said, well, you got at least insulated. They're digging lower in the driveway just to insulate the pipes so they don't have any issues in the future. But other than that, we got the last page, second to last page for the picture. You'll see the conditions that all apply to the permit. And it's void within 2 years, so if something does happen, we do not proceed forward with this void. That's standard on.
Everett, Peter, looks like there was a access. I'm looking at that concrete apron down to the roadside, beside the sidewalk. Looks like there was an access there at one time or another, and that was closed off on the sidewalk, and that wall, retaining wall was put in. Is that correct?
That's what it looks like from that picture. I don't have no idea when that.
Yeah, I guess my concern would be that it's getting closer to that drop inlet, and if there's any traffic that goes in there, that you know, what happens to the damage to the drop inlet?
Yeah, no, they're going to be staying 2 feet away from it. The radius, keeping the edge of it. But any water coming downhill will actually get into the basin.
Okay, because I wonder about if you're gonna put some sort of a ramp, which I assume you're gonna have to, is that gonna deflect the water around that drainage drop inlet?
I'll make the motion to approve access permit for 31A Forest Street with the conditions outlined. Like board chair to sign.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve 31A 4th Street access permit and have the chair sign. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on, item B. Bids.
Okay, so paper bids, we sent those out. Never bid on that. Sprinkle paving, basins, all states, and pipe. Sprinkle paving is a low bidder by a considerable amount. 200,963. Basins was 262,937. All states 295, 277, and Pike right up there, 366, 352. So looking at what we have in the budget, I kind of broke it all out, what we can afford to do, what we've got. Town budget's $350,000. It'll be a little over $2,000 for water valve adjustments, 11,000 sewer manhole adjustments. And we'll need a little bit of outside services to adjust some of the structures. There are a considerable number of structures, for example, gate, manhole, cover adjustments, 29 manholes. Actually, with no bricking, that's maybe 34 with bricking. Some of those are sewer manholes, some of those are drain manholes. We got catch basin covers, 30 of them. Some no bricking. A lot of those on Visual Drive, our attention is actually the crew itself. We'll put it in the Visual Drive drain itself. And we'll start adjusting the covers prior so that they're ready to go when they come in the shed. The right heights. And that'll save probably us $8,100. So we won't be much out of the outside services. We should not need much. So looking at it, after the winter, I took a look at what was prepared last year for paving. Pier Circle 2, so that if you drive up Visual Drive, turn right on Pier Circle, I'll call that Pier Circle 1. Then you take another right, is what I call that Pier Circle 2. That goes down through Place Drive. Pretty horrendous shape. So that really could use a shim, an overlay. Unfortunately, I could use some milling too, but I'll see if I can work it with a separate thing with like so many bases, so they can build that street out. That'll make it last quite a little longer. But that's not here. Not a little bit of stuff. So what I'm looking at doing is shimming and overlay Pier Circle 2 and just hot chip sealing it, and actually just doing the overlay on Place Drive itself and then chip seal. So that'll save quite a bit on the chip seal, and it'll add a little bit of paving. So in summary, basically what I'm recommending is a bid, accepting that amount of $205,335, all state asphalt bid in amount of $117. You go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we accept Springfield Paving's bid in the revised amount of $205,335 and accept the All States asphalt bid for chip seal in the amount of $171,659, total not to exceed $376,994, and have the chair or the select board or the manager sign the necessary documents.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept Springfield Paving All State bid. Well, before we approve that motion, I'd like to hear about the chip seal a little bit and get an answer to hundreds of thousands we spent on the section that's, I'd like to know what's happening with that before agreeing to spending another $171,000.
Okay, yep, good point. So I did take a look at it. I called the guy from All States again. I'm still stuck down in Massachusetts, like a lot of people are at this point. I looked at that, quite a bit looked at it. That's, of all the chips that we've been doing all around town, other than Parker Hill a couple years ago, when that was a mixture issue, they did come back, chips still all of Parker Hill, which is still holding up extremely well. But all the chip seal in town, we've had great luck, except for that one little section from William Street down to the square itself. And my assessment of that would be there's a little bit of ruts in there, and we do drag the greater blade down through there. And what's straightened off is actually the high points. I haven't been there at night when we're moving snow, but I know the greater blade and the loader is dragging down through there quite a bit. So I think we've got some, I think the town, maybe that was not the best spot to chip seal in the future. I think we're not going to look at chip sealing downtown or some of the real high traffic areas like that we do a lot of snow removal with a greater blade. I would recommend staying away from that, but they still will look at it. If it's involved by the, considered from all states asphalt, they can stand behind it. He has not been up, so it's, but we've had none of that, we've had great luck. Was a drive the last time that was done, that was only in 2000.
Yeah, I'm asking about that. It actually starts at the Arch Bridge, so at this point, it's less than a year old, but we may agree failed, and it's probably going to need to be repaired or replaced pretty soon. But when we were discussing this same topic, you convinced us that it was good to chip seal these roads downtown, right or wrong?
Right. Yeah. And that's
Every other road, I would say downtown. Okay. So my question again is, if it has a 1-year warranty, costs a lot of money to fix it, it now looks like it's 5 years old. And that's in less than a year. So should we have a plan to repair it? Should we have, I still believe it wasn't, something happened in the application. It was different than, like, Canal Street had a problem with that, adhering to that. Wasn't there a problem with Canal Street? So it's not the surface. Those are two different surfaces, two different areas. So perhaps it is the mix or something similar to Parker Hill, something. So it happened on Canal Street and Rockingham Street, two different road surfaces. And we paid a lot of money for it, and we have a 1-year warranty with it. Before that runs out, perhaps because of the situation we're in, they could extend the warranty till when they can come look at it. I believe that it's a problem, and we spend a lot of money on it to fix it. Going with the recommendation that we should chip seal it, I think there was concerns from the start. With the big crack in the middle, and then, so here we are, we're under warranty. We've asked about seeing what our options are before we end up having to pay to fix it from taxpayers' money in a couple of years. Yes.
Okay. That is actually 2 years old now. That was done 2 years ago. They did have the 1-year warranty, which they came back in the areas and saw that they patched in, which were separate areas than the areas that we scratched up. Eventually with the plow, the loader, or the grader. That's the information I want this guy to take a look at. But if it is a fault of the product, they have stood behind, like I said, when they did Parkville Road, they actually chip sealed all of Parkville Road at their cost for just a few little areas that were, so we got basically double coverage on Parkville Road. All states have stood behind the product. If it does, it's an aesthetic thing right now. Whether, what it is, it's still preserving, I would say 98% of it, let's say 97%, is still preserving the road. And it could be fixed, it's just a matter, sit back and find out if it's their product that did it. Is it the ruts? Do we want to shim the ruts first and then chip seal one lane, which, that could happen as well.
I would use it's not the ruts, it's the way it was applied, because the other section that got chip sealed, where I would say the loader or whatever you're referencing, the 6-wheeler that plows those roads, plowed that road the same amount of time, yet it killed surface. So from a different mix, the other side of the bridge is different subsurface, different top coat, different chip seal. Canal Street, it didn't rip off.
Right. Yeah. The outbound lane, there's not much sign of any ruts. It's going in toward Bells Falls is definite signs of ruts. And they're not just plowed with a 6-wheel truck over and over again. It's the snow removal later in the winter time as well. So there's quite a bit of stuff that does go on down there. But I will find out.
I sort of agree with Catano on the application. Was that put down in the fall? Wasn't that put down somewhere around November? And if so, could the temperature affect the application?
No, the chip seal was put down in August.
Okay, answers that question then.
they will not put it down in September. You know, when they come up here, you know, they usually Vermont, but not in August.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Motion's been made and seconded, to accept Springfield paving bid 205-335, accept all Sarah's asphalt bid for the chip seal, 171,659, total of $376,994. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi, sorry, I was on mute.
Motion passes. So we kind of covered C or not?
Yeah, you did.
Next, MO file.
Okay, that Campbell Power, these are some budget numbers. You know, basically, the truck came in pretty close to the budget numbers that Craig Allen had given me back in January. So we put out the bid. We did receive 3 responses, but only 1 bid. ATG out of Westminster. One bidder, Tri-State Truck Center out of Shrewsbury, Mass. Did not bid. And our Charboys Inc. Not sure where they're out of it. Letterhead did not do the same. It might be Burlington, I believe, Vermont. So, you know, we went through it. We do meet this spec for the truck. The truck we're replacing is truck 413. That was purchased back in 2013. Underpowered. We do that. Does plow. I think Lee Mancey said that they do that on it. Does plow cruiser drive, so going up push or so, you might be going at 5 miles an hour. I talked to Wally about, you know, how the truck is. You know, the engine brake is not the way it should be on that truck. They replace a lot of brakes on that truck due to probably underpowered horsepower. 510 horsepower, 505 horsepower, so the one we're looking at flying. The engine brakes do work a lot better. So you see the cost breakdown there. The truck itself is 131,294. Body, plow, and wing 72,450. The engine warranty, not cheap, at 63,50 for 7-year, 100,000 miles. Basic warranty at 7-year, 100,000. 4590. Transmission warranty of 5 years for 956. Total for the truck is 215,720. The trade-in, doing pretty well on that, 48,000 for the net after is 167,720. In the budget is 180. It's the warranty is off that truck. Now's the time, and if something does go, we will be looking at putting, you know, high quality with engine costs. At least 20 grand for the engine. Transmission could be 10, 15, possibly just off the engine off the top there. You know, it's I think it's Craig. You know, he's done a good job actually stocking vehicles, or I would say the whole state of Vermont. But when he orders them, he's actually passing. According to Craig, somebody saved his long to accounts. You know, I believe it was like 10 6-wheelers, 10 wheelers, all different colors, 3 different colors, blue, green, red. Pretty much more or less the same truck. But he's trying to keep these trucks for the local towns first. He's got St. John's pretty look down. Some of the northern towns look at first.
Whatever happened to Vermont Municipal, used to be Fairfield or anything like that?
We've had great luck with Viking. Vermont Municipal is the body itself. They usually get up with Fairfield as a body. It's not the truck itself. And but we've done some of that. We've had Tenco bodies in the past. I'm not sure who sold those. But we had a little bad luck with those. With the Vikings, they had great luck with them. Compared to Salt is in the environment, so you're not going to great luck with them.
Yeah.
It's good, if not better than most other trucks.
Now, at one time we talked, looking here at the Freightliner. Western Star, Freightliner is what you trade.
Right. Yeah. Western Star is what we have. I think they have both down there. Western Star seems to be the prevalent one that they're pushing to develop.
How about international? Whatever happened to that?
I would go there, but I thought about even sending it to them. I didn't. They wanted to call, and I was sending one. International has had big problem with, the trucks, just some of the towns in the mine would actually just sit there and regen. You know, quite often, they have not kept up with technology. You know, these are trucks, and some towns I've heard that, some people will come in and ask, why is the truck sitting there? Well, it's gotta go through maybe 15, 20 minutes of regen, so it's sitting there waiting for that while the truck should be on the plow. So they will eventually probably catch up to that. Yeah. They won't continue to sell trucks. So I don't think we've got, right now, I don't think there's maybe one old international left up there. Or,
Yeah. I thought we were gonna be able to squeeze out from this 48,000 for that truck.
yeah. But, probably the engine size, probably doesn't help. 48, that's pretty good.
What are your thoughts, Ben?
I think you got it. It's an essential thing. You come at it. It's good to keep up with the rotation that we got. You get off it, and then you're screwed up for however many years, and it takes that long to get caught back up. And they take a beating. 7 years is a long time for a highway truck. So
yeah,
no,
And it's mentioned in your description, that was one of the ones that got in an accident, and then insurance, I remember seeing a couple of large significant towing bills.
Yeah.
That insurance took care of all that and fixed the truck.
It took a while.
It's never been, this is a different truck.
No, this one wasn't, there's the one out on Williams Road, so it actually wasn't moving when it happened. It was actually right back on the line. Culvert failed, and then it actually got the whole truck over the edge, slowly over the edge. Pete said it was like slow motion.
But they needed.
So they fixed everything they needed to fix. We actually allowed it for the winter.
Right. That's not affecting the trading.
No. Well, and they know that truck it wasn't fixed.
And the insurance.
Insurance took care of all that. So the towing, we had to fight that. Shannon did a great, thank you, Shannon, for doing a good job on it. She's still there. That was kind of stagnant for a while. But they said they will cover the towing. It wasn't just towing, it was towing covered. So it's kind of both. They were not cheap. They're like $8,000, $9,000 for each truck.
Was.
Yeah. But that's more than just towing. If you look on the latest expense sheet report, it does say towing / recovery. And that's for both.
I don't have any questions. Somebody wants to make a motion.
yeah, I'll make the motion that the town of Rockingham purchase the 4700 Western Star with body plow, wing, and warranties for $167,720 after trade, and authorize the manager to sign all necessary documents.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to purchase of the 2020.
Well, actually, it's 20. It was 21.
Doesn't say that.
No, I had to look. I found that earlier.
Okay.
So I'm not even sure if you want to mention the year.
It's not listed, but do you want to mention the year? No. It's not listed. The 4700 Western Star, as described by Mr. Mashur. Been made and seconded. All those in favor would signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Would the year of the truck affect your warranty?
It is a 2021.
Okay, that's what.
It says here 2021.
Yeah, I think better off. That's some early.
But that's better still.
Okay.
Thank you. Now we have some naming petitions. I believe he's there. His headphones down. You're up, sir. Or did you want?
No, that's fine. They submitted that, so they can explain. Peter Bergstrom.
Peter, yes, sir. Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, we have submitted 2 petitions. Rick Cowan, who's also on, submitted the other one. One is for Cold Springs, which is the small pond in the Bellows Falls Riverfront Park. And we discussed this for a while with the Bellows Falls Historical Society because there were several other names in use. And they decided that because the name in the Lovell history is Cold Springs, that should be the official name. And this will appear on maps of the park that we're going to be preparing soon. And Rick is the one who proposed the commemorative name, Guiled Brook. So Rick, can you speak to that? If you unmute your microphone there.
Mute, there we go. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Mhm.
Good, okay. So you all remember Mac Guiled. He lived up here for 50 years in Cambridgeport on Atchison Hollow Road. There's a 1.5 mile long brook that runs parallel pretty much to Atchison Hollow Road. And it drains 396 acres, as you can see from the information in your packets. And we would like to propose that unnamed brook be named Mac Guiled in honor of Malcolm Guiled. I include a little biography of Malcolm Guiled. For those, does everyone there know who Mac was?
Yep.
You're all pretty familiar with him. So he's was a beloved guy, and he did a lot for the conservation movement in town. And right up here on Atchison Hollow Road, he preserved 113 acres. He was a nature lover and a hiker. And the brook actually runs through the properties of two of his kids, Kate and Thad. You guys, I'm sure, know them. So it seemed appropriate to me. I undertook to get a petition going with the guidance of Peter Bergstrom, who's expert in naming. And we have over 25 signatures, many of those people live right here in this neighborhood. And so we would seek that the select board would approve this naming petition.
Thank you. Need a separate motion?
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. Rick, you mentioned the name of the brook is Mac Guiled Brook, and on your petition, you've got it as Guiled Brook. I think that's the correct procedure instead of adding the word Mac there.
Exactly. I'm sorry. That was my mistake, Peter. It's Guiled Brook, and someone has to have been dead for 5 years for you to name, as you guys may recall.
Yeah.
The 5th anniversary of Mac's death has passed, so it's legal to do this now.
Yeah. Know where that brook is? I drove school bus up there for several years.
All right.
I'll make the motion that we accept the name of Guiled Brook as presented in the application for the geographic name.
I think so.
You might want to say approve.
Or approve.
We're gonna do them separate. So we have a motion to approve Guiled petition, application here. Petition. It's been seconded. Motion made and seconded to approve the Guiled Brook naming. Any discussion, questions? We're all set. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Motion passes. One more for the Cold Springs. Make a motion.
Make the motion that the Rockingham Select Board accept the name of Cold Springs for the small pond in the Bellows Falls Historic Riverfront Park and Trail System area located off of Mill Street.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor would signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you guys both very much.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Okay, next we have now a local emergency management plan that's just been updated, and I think Chief McGinnis is here.
Yeah, and this may look familiar because you just approved one, I think it was 2 months ago. We were late on that one, but on this one, we're actually gonna be on time. A lot of towns aren't gonna be, so. Chief?
It's pretty standard, it's pretty simple. Just updating what was existing.
And Peter, we incorporated your suggestions. We added those.
Yep, I got that at number 5 for the board's information. Vulnerable populations, 2 places were left off, Riverview and Sterling House were not on there, so that's been corrected.
My information is wrong.
Okay.
I'll give it to you,
Perfect. What's better?
the phone number and.
Oh, yeah,
email address.
your information, yeah. And, yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
I'll move that we accept the updated local emergency management plan.
If you wouldn't mind saying it.
Approved.
Did you second it, Peter?
Yeah, I second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the updated local emergency management plan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay. Moving on. Review agenda items for the next meeting, which would be May 5th.
Right, Gary's gonna have a lot of advertisements for grants. So it won't necessarily take a lot of time.
Yeah, so there public hearings and public meetings, and there's 5 different grants. And some of the pieces like Vermont Relay and having hearing impaired numbers, do them all at once. So some of them are grants that are completed, Chroma and Robertson, some of the ones that we applied for with you folks the past couple of weeks. And so it'll be just one public meeting that is a specific script, so that it's open clearly, meets the legal requirements of the grants, and can take care of all 5. And they're not, one of them is a village grant, and none of them require that it be a select board or a village meeting, or that you guys are here. But because they're public meetings and we have all the mechanisms of the postings in the minutes and reporting, it saves the most money to the town and village to do them like this. So that's why they're there for me.
Okay, so we have that, and then possibly Depot Street Bridge preliminary plans from V-Trans. I don't know if they'll be ready. Everett already sent comments on that to V-Trans. And then possibly a V-Trans presentation of the plans for that missing link bridge. You guys saw that?
But they need to warn the meeting for 30 days.
Sorry?
But they need to warn that meeting 30 days in
The
advance.
public hearing part of it, they do. So on the Depot Street one. On the other ones-
Bridge 38.
All right, so then that would be the second meeting in May. And they might want to do both V-Trans things at the same time.
Because I think there's some input and people want to show up to the Bridge 38 discussion.
Good.
If we know when that is.
Yeah, you'll know well in advance because you're right, it is 30 days on both of those. It was like the Depot Street Bridge one a year or so ago.
Wendy, is that definitely going to go on the May 5th at that bridge meeting?
No, it probably would, well, it would not be. There may be discussion of it, but there wouldn't be the formal V-Trans public hearing that they like to have adjacent to it.
Yeah, okay, somebody's mentioned that they'd like to be in on that. They just want to get word to them.
Yeah, you'll have 30 days.
Yeah. Also, FYI information on recycling, as I mentioned earlier, that'll be hopefully in your packet. I'll get it to Wendy, plenty of time to get it in the packet for the 5th so you can look at it and see what you think.
What is that, committee? Recycling committee?
On,
You guys want it? I don't know who's on it, but you can, if you guys want it, I'll send it to you too. I don't care. Just give me the names and the addresses. Or perhaps Wendy can forward it to you.
What do you, I'm not,
Good time.
don't understand.
Yeah, what Peter sent, what you sent to me, Peter, it was a proposed change in prices to the public for recycling, right? That's what you're talking about. I just want to confirm what you're, I'll send that.
That's an FYI. In the press release, also the draft press release, Westminster's asked me to make sure that gets down there for the Westminster Gazette, and they have to have it in there by the end of the month to get it in time to advise people of what's going on next year. So that will be in your packet draft if you want to make any changes to it.
Anything else? Review agenda items for the joint board meeting, which is scheduled for June 30th.
I don't have anything yet.
Need to approve orders, bills, and warrants.
Motion to approve orders, bills, and warrants.
Second. Motion been made and seconded. Approve orders, bills, and warrants. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Other business, Peter?
Yeah, I heard, Wendy, I heard to the grapevine rumor mill, whatever you want to call it, that there's a contract or something that MSA has brought in for some productions this year. And just wondered if the board was going to get information on that so we could at least know what was going on. And I know that with the staff reductions or furloughs, the theater manager, has he been advised or anything with that? Just curious.
I just received an email today about that. I read it pretty quickly. It wasn't a specific proposal. It was a request to talk about how to arrange not concerts, but shows in the future, because what has happened is kind of done it on the fly each time. So I think it would be good if you had a more established program for them having shows here, but there was no specific proposal. It was just an ask to talk, and I'm sure that would go before the select.
No, okay, I said the rumor mill's rampant around here anyway. I just thought I'd throw that out that I'd heard it. That's all.
Yeah, it was generally correct, but a bit ahead.
That's all I have.
Just a letter with information. This question was a contract.
Yeah, it didn't even have it. All it said was we'd like to discuss.
You said it was generally correct, but it wasn't.
No, the rumor was generally correct as far as the intention.
Okay.
But we're not that far along.
Sue?
No, I'm all set. I just want to thank all of the town hall staff and the town staff for putting up with all that they have to go through with COVID-19, and hopefully we'll be back on track sooner rather than later. We got a lot of things that have to go on in town.
I'll second that comment.
Good? Huh?
Yeah.
We voted.
Kathy was making a joke about voting for the thing.
Opposite.
I have, so we kind of discussed the Bridge 38, and then I was wondering if we could have a update with the website.
Oh, yes, it is ready to go. We are just waiting on the host of our current website. What we need to do is direct, because folks who are going to the Rock BF address, they need to be directed to the new site. But we don't want to eliminate the old site completely. We're going to use it as a legacy site because it has tons of documents on it, old agendas, minutes. It has stuff going back, in some cases, decades. So what we want to do, rather than pay to store that all that information on a new site, we want to keep the legacy site and direct people back to that site. So it just gets complicated in terms of the daisy chain of interactions. But I had hoped to actually have the turnover be yesterday, but the current host is not being very responsive. So we're doing the best we can, but it should be up any day. I'm glad you brought it up, actually.
And what are we calling
Right, well, it'll still be ronpf.org. Oh, yeah, let me, because there's rumors going around about that too. There are, thank you for mentioning that. There's some folks are putting up websites that are pretending to be government sites. And in response to that, the federal government created a naming convention that has a .gov extension instead of the .org or .com, and it's .gov, and only governments can get that website. That's how you know that you're on an official government website. The way that it's structured is it's the name of the town and then the 2-letter state abbreviation. So we can have both Rockingham BT.gov and Bellows Falls BT.gov because it's $400 a year and because the town is paying for the website. I chose for the first application to be Rockingham BT.gov. The Bellows Falls BT.gov doesn't go anywhere. No one else can take it because the way this process works is the federal government makes you prove that you are officially of that place in multiple ways. It actually takes a while, which is kind of a pain. So we still haven't received the official okay to go ahead with the Rockingham BT.gov. But if the village wants to do Bellows.Falls.BT.gov, that's fine. You can have both. I just didn't want to presume that the village would want to spend that $400. Right. So thank you for bringing that up.
Mr. Chairman, one more comment, if I could.
I have a couple of questions. Response to that. I have a response to that. Okay. So right now the town pays for the website?
Mostly, yeah. The
right
village,
now, currently?
yes.
Current
The
website?
village might make a little contribution, but the town basically does it. Shannon, is that correct?
And then,
I don't know.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, just the town generally pays for the
current website.
Yeah, I mean, you can, if you want to split hairs, like
It's just a question.
Yeah, no, but it gets complicated just because of the way the village, like when I work on the website, I'm part town and I'm part village. So you could argue that the village part of me helps too, but.
I'm just paying for the host website, the one that's currently there right now, the town of Rockingham pays for that.
Yes.
Okay. And then in reference to the switching over and leaving the other one for the legacy, will all the other information be removed, or you plan on updating all the incorrect information that's on the website?
We would actually hide the incorrect information. So we wouldn't want to have anything that conflicts with the new website.
So essentially, would you remove most of it and just keep the archived older stuff? So if someone went there thinking that they were in the right spot and not go to the new website, if you remove us, have you been considering that?
Yeah, well, we have, and that's one of the complications. I see Monty North on here too. We're also looking at a different way of storing all of those files too, which could be the next stage in this. But we certainly don't want people to have access to information that's wrong. That would defeat the purpose of the new website.
Perhaps the homepage of the archive should read where the new website is, and then have a simple tab of archive, whatever you want to store there, things that you don't want to pay to move.
I could explain.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Okay. It's a little bit complicated if you don't understand these things. Oh, and I just about a half an hour ago had an email exchange with a man named Ray, who works for a company called Dominion, who has been handling IT stuff for the town. We've been talking back and forth with Ray for about 2 weeks now. Ray and Theo, who recently left the job. So now we have Ray. It's a little complex. rockbf.org is the URL, the website address we've been using for many years. I've been working for about 8 weeks now, making a new site that has the web address of rockinghamvt.org. We're waiting for approval on Wendy's application that she put in, I think 6 weeks ago, for rockinghamvt.gov. Obviously, things there on the vt.gov side are a little not functioning well right now because of the pandemic. So we're waiting for that. But we have rockinghamvt.org. That is live. If any of you want to go home and type that into your web browser, rockinghamvt.org, you will see the new site. And for several weeks, I have been updating both that new site and the old site, which is rockbf.org. What we want to accomplish in the end, and this is actually not the end, but the interim, is for a new site that has been created by Dominion with everybody's falling asleep, I'm sorry, with your ass, with the name legacy.rockbf.org. On that site, all these literally thousands of archived documents will be held. If anyone has rockbf.org bookmarked in their computer, they will immediately, they won't even know it happened, go to rockinghamvt.org, which is the new site. On that new site, we direct people in many locations that if they are looking for an archived document, here's the link to legacy.rockbf.org. Once this is accomplished, I will go back to rockbf.org and take away.
What we can do maybe is when all of this has happened, have a full update. Right now,
I hope it's tomorrow, according to what I just wrote to Ray.
I thought it hadn't been approved.
Maybe you would have got an email or something.
Wendy's.gov wasn't approved is what.
No, the .gov, it will have to wait, but we will have a new site at rockinghamvt.org. And the reason for that is the site we have, rockinghamvf.org, runs through a template situation that the staff has found very difficult to use. So we've got a new site that is much easier to use. And as soon as the staff is back in town hall and I can spend time one-on-one training with just a few key people, it's going to be a lot better for everyone. And I think if you go home tonight and type in rockinghamvt.org, you'll be happy with the new site. There are also sections of it that we have turned dark right now, but there are some very lovely sections promoting restaurants, arts, music, and theater, and so forth in our town that obviously aren't appropriate to be there right now. So that's how it works. And we've been waiting every day for about 10 days now to have this switch made, and we're hoping it can be done tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Sorry to chime in, but everybody's asking, and I thought I'd try to explain.
A question.
Yes, sir.
I just got an email set up at rockbf.org. What's that going to do with that? Is that going to be changed over to rockinghamvermont.org now?
No, as Ray from Dominion explained to me just this evening, the emails are actually going through I didn't set this up, a Microsoft Word application. So
Correct.
none of this that we're doing with the website will affect the emails. And that's been a question that I've been asking our fellows at Dominion again and again. We don't want those emails to lose functionality for 1 second. And I've been assured they will not. So the things we don't want anyone to go to rockbf.org and say no website. That would be horrible because there is a website. We don't want any email to bounce back. We want this process, this transition to go smoothly. And I and Wendy and Chuck have been really working hard with the folks from Dominion, which were hired years ago, I guess, by the town, to make sure this goes smoothly. And the reason it's going slowly is because we're trying so hard to be certain that it's flawless and it's instantaneous. Don't roll your eyes. I'm sorry. I've been rolling my eyes here for 3, 4, 5 weeks. That's where it's at.
I assume that remark was intended for me, Bonnie.
Yeah, it was.
No, I just went through a situation with Dominion Tech today, and half of it works, and the other half doesn't. So he's playing with the other half to try and get that.
You're making me sick. You're making me turn my stomach. I'm trying to have faith in these people. Oh my God.
So
Anyway.
I see where you're coming from, Donnie. I'm on your side there.
Well, I'm just trying to tell you, we've been trying and we've been working on it for weeks. And we have a beautiful new site up there. And I've been updating both of them daily with every little new thing that comes up.
Here, I'm sorry. We'll hear your full report.
Okay.
Very much. No other business. Do we need an executive session to discuss matters?
I don't have one.
Nothing here.
Okay. Entertain motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.